Hey guys, how's it going? It's me. It's the Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi music YouTuber. I forgot that was my intro, and then it just kind of came to me. It's time. It's time. It's almost the new year, or it might even be the new year by the time this uploads. So I stumbled through the Finnish wastes to make for you guys the most low effort possible recap of Nothing But Black Metal November this year. But unlike last year, I'd be getting out in like before January 16th or so, whenever I got it out. I don't remember when that was, but it's going to be a little different this year for two reasons. One, I am replacing nothing, really. Pretty much nothing. Instead, I am just going with the 60. And that's for a couple reasons. My I ran out of time. I just wanted to get the video out. And two, I had uh, only Finnish albums, and the variety of stuff you would see come onto the list would have been kind of repeats of other bands. As much as Finland does have the highest per capita amount of metal bands per person, Finland is a small country. It's not that big, so that's really not that many metal bands. I'm sure the United States is a lot more. Um, Norway probably has more black metal bands. So does Germany, and probably so does like France. Those looking through my lists, those were like the three most prominent ones, which I'm sure you'll see them show up in future videos of some sort. But I'm just gonna do straight up the 60 albums and rain or shine, most likely rain, or like hellish hailstorms of sleet and snow and ice and terrible things because this is Finland. Except also in Finland, it would be like excrement, sharp hail, like boulders and like hellfire. Because that is one thing that you learn kind of describes their sound a lot after listening to all these 60 albums. It can be particularly gross. It's a gross thing, and that does sort of center around. I guess I'm just giving like a sort of a recap of Finnish black metal here. It can be particularly dissonant. Its dissonance is really a big key factor here. But these bands do have a couple cruxes on them. First of all, the main players in the scene. There are like three bands that are like the goats that also like show up in other bands. In every band, it's like Kevin Bacon, where there's not that many degrees of separation. Um, it really boils down to, are you or are you not related to Horna, or you're either related to Horna or you're in Beharit, basically. Which oddly enough, I didn't cover Beharit this year at all in the 60 bands, which I know that's probably seen as criminal as like one of the big things. I said 60 bands; it was 60 releases with a whole bunch of other bands, but Beharit just didn't show up this year. I did a couple releases from a bunch of bands. Basically, everyone is either in like Horna, which goes into Beharit a little bit, or they do a split with Horna. It's you're either in Behexen, who does a split with Horna, or they do a split with some other band, or you're in Cosmic Church or something like that. That's how they all end up. And the style is a few particular things. First off, post 2010, I would say, you do get kind of the globalization of black metal effect, I would say. If there was a sort of, I guess, fifth wave of black metal, well, a second wave of black metal is obviously second wave of black metal, third wave of black metal, I would probably argue would be like that industrial sound that came out the early 2000s. And then it was just straight up deathcore. Deathcore was the fourth wave of black metal. You had bands like Mirror Throne and Immortal and all sorts of bands having occasional breakdowns, and you also had the actual emergence of symphonic and blackened deathcore happening, which is terrible. And a lot of these bands, aren't bad. I like Mirror Throne. I love Immortal. But the presence of breakdowns and thrashier bits and down tuning, and clearer production and symphonic elements and clean vocals was emerging pretty rapidly. I think we're now, if there was a fifth wave, it would be Black Gaze probably, which is probably like the most heretical of all of these, aside from deathcore, of course, no pun intended. But this final sixth scene being the globalization of black metal, I guess you could argue, we do have a lot of the same stuff that you always see. Like, there's definitely going to be an album today that's just a DSBM album. One's going to be an atmospheric black metal album that the songs are all 15 minutes long and it's got a couple ambient samples in there. That does happen a lot. But the style you'll see pretty often. ranges in between like a lot of atmosphere and a lot of attitude is kind of the big thing the Finns go for. And you will find things to be very melodic for not trying to be melodic black metal. You're not going to get like Slaughter Sun. You're not really going to get Dissection. But all these bands could sound supremely punky while also being extremely bitter and long-winded and melodic. The riffs are pretty jagged at times, but I do like the sort of dichotomy of the list this year between like the old school stuff where you get to see what the scene really means and the modern stuff where you can see how much quality Finland has today, because actually Finland's modern scene is still very solid. And of course, the discography we are covering this year is another Finnish band, Moon Citadel. And let's just start the 60 albums because it starts off with Moon Citadel. It starts off with Moon Citadel's first demo, As Night Winds Embraced and the Shadows Caressed. That is an annoying thing about this band. All of the titles are super long-winded. I don't need to spend too much time because the stuff on this demo does appear on the EP, but it is re-recorded and a couple songs are added, and I think it's better. But spoiler alert, this one is great as well. You get an almost pagan sense of these long-winded, winding melodic riffs that have sort of a bouncy quality to them. It is excellent quality right off the bat. It's cold. It's got tons of reverb, but it's got an overall sort of light quality to it. Like the riffs don't have too much density and heaviness. Like they just shoot off and go into the melodic territory very quickly. There are some supporting synths that have pretty clear production, so they're not covered up too much. It's pretty grim, but it's got an overall full sound. It's not too overbearing at all. The song Dimensional Key feels borderline neoclassical with the way its riff feels exactly like sort of a romantic classical string piece. This is an excellent, amazing demo, a great one to start off the discography. The next release we have is the Moon Calls to Wander EP by Moon Citadel, which is literally half the first EP, but a bit more raw and a little bit more symphonic. It's literally the same songs. It's great. I think the production even goes in a more positive direction. Oddly enough, I don't know how it's more raw on the second time around, but I have seen bands do that, and it's to its favor. And up next, we have Moon Citadel's Night's Scarlet Symphonies, the debut full-length album, and I believe currently like the only real full-length album by Moon Citadel. This is a re-listen, and I'm just going to say it's riff city. It's everything about Moon Citadel you want boiled down to this perfect little package. It's a little bit cold. It's got these dense synths that pack the whole thing together, and it is just Mach speed at all times. It is riffs on riffs on riffs on riffs, and at the end of the day, it's what you're here for. You need good riffs to package everything together. That is another way of encapsulating this whole Finnish scene. There's not a lot of BS. It just shoots forward. It just gives you the black metal. It's full of attitude and disgust. It doesn't want to cross over into other genres that much. It's pretty clear cut. It's angsty, and it's here to make black metal. And the influences are all very much themselves. It's a very contained scene that boils upon itself. It's like a soup where you like cut down the stock through boiling it, and the flavors intensify, and its development seems to be within its own scene. And of course, let's just go into one more. This is I consider this to be like a popular band's less popular pick in regards to my listing. This is Moon Citadel's next EP, Onyx Castles and Silver Keys. It is very good, but it does pale in comparison to Night's Scarlet Symphonies. It is mostly the same type of stuff. If there's any complaint about Moon Citadel, their stylistic developments are not always the most advanced, but it does seem to be a bit more atmospheric and restrained, which is something they will express on their latest EP that actually came out this year, provided it's still 2025 when I upload this whole thing. It does have some more atmospheric moments, a little bit more laid back energy at times. It still has a ton of energy normally, but it just has a bit more restraint, which I like. I like the eclecticism, so I like this one too a lot. I think it's great. And let's stop talking about Moon Citadel for a second, because we got a fusion album to cover, and of course, who else could it be from Finland but Archgoat with Light Devouring Darkness? If you've heard one Archgoat album, it's almost like you've heard one Revenge album, or most war metal bands out there. Every war metal band is slightly different from the rest, but the biggest problem is that their entire discography will normally be pretty similar to itself. Like those bands will have one album that sounds like the next, it sounds like the next. Not a ton of stylistic development. So if you could imagine what an Archgoat album sounds like, this one sounds like an Archgoat album. You get some serious lack of funny business, just serious caveman riffs. It's dismal and evil. It sounds good and clear. It's actually not too raw of production. It is a tiny bit formulaic, but it is just like the best formula ever, so I can't complain that much. There's a little bit of some doomy riffs in here that actually remind me a lot of like later era Darkthrone, or maybe not later era Darkthrone, more like Panzerfaust Darkthrone. They're seriously sick stuff. It's got like an old school heavy metal like tinge to it. It's old school, it's simple, it's effective, it's great. Give it a listen. Up next is a band I wasn't sure I was going to cover at any point because they're such a big Rate Your Music glaze band, but this is Moon Sorrow, not Moon Citadel, but Moon Sorrow with Verisikit. I'm going to mispronounce a lot of albums today. We're almost through the English things, so you're going to hear me do some bad ones. But this is sort of like a pagan folky black metal thing, which is so easy to be bad. It's kind of like symphonic black metal, where you can just hear them overload on the synths and sound like Sabaton. But fortunately here, it's not the case. You get some seriously dynamic, really well written and interesting black metal. It's definitely sort of middling between the range of Finland's like proper era and like the globalization of black metal, I would say, where they really not aligning that much with other Finnish black metal, and they're really just letting themselves speak for themselves. I'm sure they listen to a lot of like Polish black metal, a lot of like Nagura Bunget and other bands like that, maybe some Ulver here and there. A lot of folky influences. I'm sure I hear a Jew's harp at one point, but it's got really, really excellent songwriting. And I have to say, one of the things on this album I like a lot, there are clean vocals, and they are good. A lot of black metal bands go for clean vocals, and they're just terrible. Like, they go to be too much of a Viking LARP thing, but here it's mixed really well. It sounds borderline pretty. It's pretty effective. It's only 5 songs, but it's actually over an hour, so there's a lot of substance to carve through with this thing here. It's actually fairly progressive. It's occasionally melodic and sometimes hard-hitting and simple, which is a really good one-to-one contrast here. The LARPiness and the folk elements are actually so well done, they never feel distracting or overly LARPy, I guess, especially with the TikTokification of like Viking music and culture and Sabaton and stuff like that. It's really easy to get me to hate that, but it's really threading the needle here. I gotta really give it props. So it's great. I'm probably gonna try to check out some of the other discography at some point. I don't think this album is like an all-time favorite for me necessarily, so the other albums might not stun me so much, but this one's definitely worth a listen. Some of you might put it in your top albums of all time. It's not far-fetched to me. And of course, what would be a chart of mine without some vampiric black metal? We have Vampiric Bloods, Howling in Candlelight. This is a band that has done splits with Drowning the Light, which are kind of my goats. I just wish they released less than like 150 albums, dude. Seriously, that's the most confusing discography I've ever seen, especially because back in 2023, he made a fantastic album, and I can't just sort through that entire discography. It's ridiculous. How can I just be that big of an Australian black metal fan? Not entirely a ridiculous idea, I guess. Once you're into black metal, you're in it. But I gotta say, the vampiric style black metal is something I like a lot, so I was looking forward to this album a lot. And it was a sort of a split thing for me. It's actually not overly raw. You're not going to get like early mutilation production here, but it is also pretty energetic. It's decently riffy. You get a good variance in tempo. I do like the addition of the more crushing and simple riffs here. It's definitely a good dosage of romanticism in here. I don't think it's like as heart-wrenching as, say, Drowning the Light, but it does feel somewhat longing, somewhat forlorning, and I gotta give that one props. I do prefer some more like absolutely dilapidated and just life-ruining vampiric black metal, but I like the emotions here. The only problem here are the interludes are kind of unforgivable. They are just annoying and just over way too long. It's perfect for an EP, but I don't think that's enough here. So I think this is a good album, and it's one of the few that I found a replacement for, which is also Vampiric Blood with Watching the Nights Rot and Eternal Melancholy. It's their EP, which is just as effective as this album. No interludes, but there is a closing track of a pretty decent length. It's like over a quarter of the EP. That's kind of not my favorite, kind of goes on a bit too long, but everything you like about that album is also on this EP. It shows the dude has some strength in his songwriting. The production is really crusty. The vocals are a bit more present and aggressive. I like the riffs a bit more overall. It's to the point. It's very effective. I think that one's great. And up next, we have just a predicted banger. We have The True Werewolf with Devil Crisis. For those of you who don't know, this is sort of Satanic War Master's main project, I guess. Or it's actually it's like less of a solo project, and it's him with a couple other members, which is weird because people know him as Werewolf, and his band The True Werewolf has the guest musicians. And after Satanic War Master's latest album, which I didn't love that much, I loved Amen but his last album was just had some gaps for me. It wasn't my favorite thing in the world. This one was a serious breath of fresh air. You had more to the point, extremely fast drumming. And we are right in the heart of Satanic War Master's later era, where his first era was just punky, Burzum-style riffs, really heavy metal influenced, aggressive, crusty, like just a horrible production. It was great stuff, honestly. Pretty punky, a lot like Horna. And then both those bands had a split down the middle. Horna went more atmospheric, and Satanic War Master went melodic and fast. And here we are with that exact same thing. You have the most bitter, biting, and cold, aggressive, semi-melodic black metal. The riffs are absolutely huge. They're downright catchy at points, and the drums are actually breathtaking. If you want just the best concrete brick of blast beats and tremolo picking you could get in the past decade, this is probably it. If it's really an album that asks, do you like what black metal is? And if the answer is yes, you're going to love this album. If you want something a little more substantive outside of what black metal is, might not be your favorite thing, but the melodies are downright gorgeous. But they're also really evil tremolo riffs, which I feel like a lot of bands kind of miss the point on nowadays. They just go for atmosphere. There's like some dissonance where you need it. There's a lot of really beautiful melodicism where you need it. It's not too repetitive. It builds on itself. It's decently progressive. It is a lot to sink your teeth into, and it is so much energy. It's ridiculous. I think this one's great. They did it again. I also should probably kind of also recommend, not the Satanic War Master, but the third EP by True Werewolf. Those first EPs have just the worst production ever. Like, truly bad. But the third EP is pretty solid. Good riffs. Up next, we have a band called Starcave with Final Sins. Starcave is a collaborative project between the members of Ride for Revenge and Cosmic Church. And Cosmic Church is a very atmospheric leaning black metal band, but they have such a gloomy and bizarre atmosphere that sometimes turns into something great. Ride for Revenge is basically Profanatica's side project, but in Finland instead of America. Like it's like the Have a Hedge later albums that aren't truly really black metal, but just doom laden and crushing. It's almost Swans, like early Swans playing. And what you get here is Starcave, which is kind of not my thing. It's dirgy, slow, atmospheric black metal, and I think it kind of misses the point of everything it tries to do. Ride for Revenge works because it's aggressive. Like it's like kind of disgusting how simplified it is, but here it doesn't really work as atmospheric black metal. When you learn that the concept of this thing is supposed to be like a spacey atmosphere, it kind of comes together, but without that concept, the whole thing kind of falls apart. It's not as deep or atmospheric as you want it to be. It's like kind of something that needs to have instructions with it. It's certainly dark, but I believe it fails to deliver, so I'd say it's really just okay. And we have our first modern this year's release. On this next one, we have Bronze Hall with Honor and Steel. And let me tell you guys, if you like Moon Citadel, if you like Moon Sorrow, if you want something a little bit in between two, but with like a ton more, like say like Argoslint, maybe like good dosage of Judas Priest, just like heavy metal riffs. This is your album. This album is action-packed, thrilling, super aggressive. It actually kind of reminds me just a little bit of the latest Grenadier release. It was on Wyatt Him's like top 20 albums of the year, but this one is really action packed. Just a tiny bit of like the pagan black metal influence, but it's not too much. Really not too much when it could have so easily been too much. There's a lot of nerdy dungeon synth interludes here that is right up my alley, but you get like a dense, chunky bottom end to the actual guitar playing that really reminds you that this thing is about war and action and horrible things. This is an album that I would describe as respectively fun. It is not over the top. It does not go overboard with the silliness. It is very contained within itself. I think it's great. A very exciting album, and I can't wait to see what they have to do next. And up next, we have Oranssi Pazuzu, a band that I'm actually covering probably less albums than you guys would want me to this year, with Mukailainen Pua. I don't know how to pronounce Oranssi Pazuzu with their strange alien language there, but I will say they are probably the most unique black metal band coming out of Finland for the past 20 years. That does not mean they're the best. In fact, I would say they're far from it. But this album is cool. As you could tell by the cover, it's space themed, and all their albums are kind of space themed. They've done more of a blackened blood incantation thing over the past 10 years or so. I was super in love with their 2020 album, Mistar and Kinsey, I believe it was. Their latest album, though, was on everyone's favorite list, and it really wasn't for me. I thought it went a little too hard into the like prog, gent, techie realm, and it kind of distracted from the musical quality here. This album here is basically a black metal parody of space rock. Like, it has tons of lounge moments, actually. It's like got lounge guitar tones, but like 5 times as dissonant. This is one of the more dissonant black metal albums I've ever heard. Just in general, definitely the tone of the whole thing does remind me a little bit of Imperial Triumphant with their whole like fake gothic thing. It's definitely like desecrating religion is so old school for all these bands. Let's desecrate like Norman Rockwell era art. Let's desecrate 1950s Jamestown type suburbs. Let's desecrate like things that we saw as the height of society, because everything it makes more of a social statement that way. I like the idea of like Cold War era space race thing being shown for what it truly was as sort of political commentary. I think that's a cool idea, and I think it works here really well. You get lots of really long-winded guitar passages, really spacey drumming. I don't think there's any blast beats on this album. It's super atmospheric and weird, but I view it as more of a cold, cynical take on everything, as opposed to what you'd think it would be. And I'm trying to find an album that feels as cynical as this one, and I'm sure it's out there. Naked Whipper is cynical, but like they're a little too silly. Like this, I don't know, like a little bit of, gosh, there's like a blackened metalcore screamo band out there that I actually have a DVD of. I forget what they are. There's a 3-piece that sounds kind of like that, but it's just a particularly cruel and biting tone to the whole thing, and I think it's great. One of their better albums for sure. I'll have to check out the remainder of their discography at some point. And next, I have a fusion album called Hail or Inheritance of Evilness by a band called Hail. This is a blackened doom metal album, and it is very doomy. It is straight doom metal for a solid chunk of it. It's actually a Worm Phlegm side project. If you guys have ever listened to that one band that released the one album that was one song, it was like a blackened funeral doom thing, and you get a similar experience here. You get genuinely some of the most unflattering production I've ever heard. Just truly crusty and just completely bereft. Like, it feels like something my guitarist would have made back in the day. It feels so intentionally unlikable that it's like kind of hard to believe, and that's what makes it feel so evil. And yet, like, the attitude of the whole thing is like a little more on the standard black metal side of stuff, and the vocals have sort of that like Transylvanian Hunger thing where they sound kind of distant from the rest of the mix, except they're actually kind of more along the lines of like death metal or like death doom vocals. Like, they're growling, they're intense. Probably my best comparison would making this blackened Infestor Like I love Infester, but like oh my gosh, some of the most like disturbing, disgusting metal I've ever heard. And this is a similar thing here. It's not the riffiest thing in the world. It definitely leans more into atmosphere and doom and production, but just the overall effect it has is it really supersedes what it is. It is greater than the sum of its parts for sure. It is an intense, brooding, and stoic experience, actually. It's one of those black metal albums that feels staunchly cold, and yet most of those end up being, I don't know, what's the word, racist? Like its attitude is so much more indifferent to its own destruction than those other bands. It is thunderous and simple, but super, super heavy. I thought it was great. Really cool. I'll definitely have to listen again at some point. And up next, I have a popular band's less popular pick, Satanic Warmaster with Fimbulwinter. And this is actually, I believe, the later of the two albums I'll be covering from Satanic Warmaster today. And it definitely is the dividing point between those two eras, because this is where we get Satanic Warmaster with just riff city. This is just atmospheric black metal riffs going light speed, going crazy. It's got some similarities to that True Werewolf album. You get a decently varied mix here. The songs have switch ups and a decent amount of drama. It's very cold, as is apt for the band, but there's so much drama and action that it works out really well. The production carries it definitely into the modern era. It's not overly clean, it's just enough. The ambient interludes are not my favorite. They seem to really just provide more atmosphere without a ton of musical justification necessarily, but you know, it feeds into the vibe. I have no real complaints about this album. I think it's great. He did it again. Who's surprised? And up next we have a band, I'm gonna have to read this one, called Iran with Pimeti Vasten. That one. It's an atmospheric black metal band that definitely doubles down on its own features. It's definitely double on the atmosphere, double on the length, very slow moving riffs despite being blast beats and drum picking. I will say, despite being a atmospheric black metal style that I find to be so overcrowded with bad examples, it is best in class. Really mysterious and great chords picked here. Synths that kind of blanket everything in like a light fog, while not being as actually musically varied as something like Cosmic Church. I think what they do here is interesting enough. Overall, it's definitely long-winded and a style that I tend to hate, but I think it's good. I think it's a very good example of what these albums should at least try to strive for. It's way too oversaturated though. I think if this style like stopped after like a handful of albums being this slow, or actually some of them could have gotten even slower, this one does end up blending in a little too much with the rest. And then we have a re-listen with Sargeist's Let the Devil In, an album I haven't listened to in a long time. And I like the Sargeist debut, and I haven't heard this one in a while, so I decided to give it a listen again. And here's the easiest way to describe this thing. The B-side is phenomenal. The A-side has riffs to be desired, which makes sense because the dude from Horna is in this band, and he's just sounds like Horna on the first half, but it's not addressing the strengths of Horna. Like, it's not riffy enough, it's not having punky intensity and brutality and anguish, which is all things Horna's known for. It's just the production a little less appealing. The riffs aren't really there. You get crazy fast, surging, blasting intensity on the second half, though. It's really everything you'd want. The blast beats are for days. If this was an EP, it would be literally perfect. So for that, I gotta say it's good, but it is absolutely an essential Finnish black metal release here. If there was a top 100 Finnish black metal releases, you'd have to listen to this one. It's essential. Similarly, we have Cosmic Church with Tatimis, which of the two Cosmic Church albums I've listened to, this certainly is the other. It's a misty, hazy atmosphere with a pretty perfect atmospheric black metal production. It actually feels unique to Cosmic Church. For some reason, no other atmospheric black metal band sounds like Cosmic Church, and here they just have a little bit of like a blanket of fog over everything without having to lean on raw production. You get these really cool long songs here that have a giant dichotomy between the atmosphere and the droning and the more intense riffs. As far as atmospheric black metal goes, this was decently progressive. I think the second song is a fantastic part, and it's really the finest example of the album, where every song has something going for it. It just needs to all be boiled down to something more consistent, like that one song. So I think this album is good. I just think they've done better at other points of their career. Up next, we have a fusion album. This is with Crust Punk. This is Arnott Paul's self-titled album. I've heard the more recent Arnott Paul album, and I didn't love it for some reason, but this one is everything I wanted, actually. It is like a perfect one-to-one split of crust punk speed metal type riffs with wretched black metal vocals over the top, and then it will just storm into blast beats and crazy, that really classic Finnish riffing style where it's simple and yet melodic enough to be different. It's got these crawling spider-like melodic sections that are just so satisfying. It's really like the pinnacle of the style to be like that, and they're a band that does it in spades. It does remind me a little bit of Det Sammenhang Var by Burzum by having these like more intense heavy metal moments and the more fast standard black metal sections. It's aggressive, it's riffy, it's got tons of bass, there's so much to sink your teeth into. Every song has really good dichotomy of styles, and yet both styles are expressed in a ton of different ways. You get different riffs, you get different moments, you get different tempos. The song structures don't feel gimmicky, and the whole album feels complete. It feels very complete. Every song completes what it wants to do. This one's great. Definitely give it a listen. And then we have Noenum with their self-titled 2019 compilation, which is funny because this is a band from way before 2019. This is a bit of like a DSBM project, except they go so far into like the caustic, cynical side. And a lot of people, what kind of helped me really get into this release here is learning how occult the whole thing was, and it was meant to be not so depressing and more like looming and mysterious. And that helped me kind of understand what it was going for, because it's kind of unique. It kind of reminds me of Cosmic Church and how in its own style, it's kind of just slightly fits ever so apart from the other albums that are in its style, but you can't really explain why. This one is similar in that regard, where it's just a bit more riffy. The chords loom very intentionally. They don't drone on for way too long. They don't bide their time more than they have to, but they do bide their time. This is an album with a lot of patience, or rather a compilation with a lot of patience, but it doesn't waste your time. I would compare the sheer brittle dissonance to that of like early Zaster. It's definitely mid-tempo. It is decrepit and strange. That's probably the coolest thing about this album, is how much it kind of refuses to fit in a box. So it's always kind of keeping you on your toes. It's such a staunchly anti-music band here that it's honestly impressive. It's a brick wall of hate, which is pretty cool. Also, the demo section on the tail end of this compilation, which I think comes before everything, is super rewarding. Hearing the raw production makes it more immediately immersive. So I especially recommend that part. This whole thing is great. Definitely give it a look. It's definitely a more underground listen, but I think it's worth your time. Up next is a band called October Falls with The Womb of Primordial Nature. If you wanted some of that atmospheric black metal stylings, especially of that largely composed variety, that's kind of one song in an album, this is the one for you. It's jangly, it's folky, it's definitely down-tempo at moments. It's got a lot of momentum, though. It is overall very comfy. One of my favorite elements of this album that sticks out a lot is the slower moments here really shines the dual guitar portions. It will get pretty melodic, and they will go against each other very nicely. It's kind of a depressing, slow Iron Maiden take. There's also some gorgeous acoustic work on here. Really ties the atmosphere of everything together. Everything is thoughtfully structured. Occasionally it is thunderous and aggressive. It's a really cool take on atmospheric black metal that I feel like dips into every category it needs to without going overboard at any point. It really, you could tell the main focus is the melodicism, the song structure, and the overall vibe, but that's not the key priority. That's not the only thing. It's tied into what they actually do. So it's great. Listen to it. And up next is a re-listen, which is Behexen's By the Blessing of Satan. I have still not listened to another Behexen album except for one split they did that I'll be discussing on this chart today. I'm just going to say this is top 10 black metal albums of all time. Extremely dense bass presence. Some of the noisiest black metal I've ever heard without having actual noise element. Literally some parts of this get so fast and intense that you cannot hear what is happening, and yet it is so perfectly fine-tuned, so well constructed. The bass is always looming, and typically this thing has like a decently fast tempo that the riffs are perfect on top of, but then it'll go into these like horrifying early Darkthrone style riffs that are just like a concrete block over your head. And at the same time, this I used to describe as the Finnish equivalent to Day Mysteries Dumb South and Us by Mayhem, of course, due to its like particularly eerie atmosphere. Now imagine if that album was like set on fire. Like it's like if that was at Mach speed and just way more caustic and aggressive. Well, that album is a bit more friendly, a little more. I'm not gonna say singer songwriter, but like you could hear some of the vocals at some points. You could tell what's going on. This album right here, it is like a black metal enjoyer's black metal album. There's so much to sink your teeth into, and it is so brooding and aggressive. It really does feel like you took that album and dunked it in Finnish excellence. Also, better riffs than Euronymous. So sorry, even though Euronymous kind of helped coin the style. I think what you have here is just perfect. Perfect. It is a perfect black metal album. Definitely purchase it. Don't just listen to it, but purchase a copy, as I will at some point. It's great. And up next, we have a band called Silon Vihollinen with, what is this? Ruhon Kotaja. The Finnish language, guys. The Finnish language. This one here is crusty and rather dismal. It's probably one of the most clear-cut, like, Finnish examples of black metal that you will ever really hear. It's not really particularly anything but Finnish. It's occasionally punky. It's a little more melodic than what you're used to. It's a bit crusty. It's raw. It's got momentum, and it's a solid example of this here. That is my only real complaint about like United States black metal is like there's nothing that's quintessential United States black metal. You could say there's quintessential like Cascadian scene or like California DSBM or like I don't know Blackened Crust from wherever that comes from or something like that, or maybe even the sludge crossovers of like the NOLA scene. But like this is really just quintessential Finnish black metal. It's a band that I want to sift through a little more and see what their perfect project is. But like everything you know about in Finnish black metal is really to a T here. I will say it's great. If I listened to, say, double the Finnish black metal, maybe I'd get tired of this because it's kind of what the other bands do. But it's very stripped back. It's very in your face. It's aggressive. It's mysterious. It does what you want out of a black metal album. And up next we have another band called Antimateria, or A, like a loud A because it's like capitalized there because they're really crazy. With Veloi Kojan Taka. I think I saw that word on one other album on here, so I should know how to pronounce it by now. So this is a album that I would say has some similarities to that Silon Vihollinen one, but it just kind of fails to capitalize on any of its strengths. It's got a lot of moments on every song that just feels kind of half-baked and underdeveloped. Like sometimes there's a solid riff that it doesn't follow with. Or like it would have like a really good vocal part that it just doesn't do enough of or it does too much of. It feels like an album that every song was in a revision state, and also with the production. I think everyone should probably hear this album to understand what I'm talking about, because the final song on the album is a paragon for the rest of the album. It's got great riffs, a really good progression, really fantastic synth parts. The vocals are actually really solid on the whole album, so I have no complaints there. But it works so well, and it just is the boiled down perfect portion of the album that it reflects the rest of the album in a better light. So listen to that song. I think it's still a good album. Of course, great moments all around. It's just sometimes you don't always want to pay attention to it because it's not always gratifying. And up next, we have another popular band's less popular album. We have Satanic War Masters' Nachzehrer. This one is at the tail end of the Raw era. It's like late 2000s. And let me tell you, real sleeper hit in the discography. It's gritty, raw, sonically amazing. It's that exact like fine-tuned production. Not as nice as like Philosopheme by Burzum, but like it's just that perfect raw ear massage that also consequently sounds terrible. It's punky, it's scrappy, it's a blanket of misanthropic noise. It's perfectly raw, some of the best in the genre. Clear enough to be fully legible, which is a word I should use more. Legible. This album is perfectly legible, but it is not clean. There are some light occasional synths that tie everything together and make it eclectic, but they are sparse, not always happening. And this album is just something you guys need to hear. It's a snowstorm, and it's fantastic. It's great. Give it a listen. And up next, we have a fusion album, Ride for Revenge with the King of Snakes, their debut album. And while like Under the Eye might be a little more friendly to most new listeners to this band, this is like their original stuff. And this is to like Filth what maybe like their Drone album would be like for the like Young God EP, if we're comparing this to Swans, because this thing is aggressive. It's dirgy, it's really dirty, it's like riffy, I guess. It's like not a lot of melodicism going on. It's a bludgeoning album, a lot like Have a Hedge. It's brutally heavy, atmospheric, and doom-laden. It does remind me a lot of Drawing Down the Moon by Beharit. It's got that sort of semi-war metal influence, which you can kind of tell by the album cover, which is just funny because, like, musically speaking, a lot of these elements are opposite. It's like this one's very slow, that's very fast. This one has super legible, clear noise. In fact, I don't even know if there's a guitar here. I think it's just bass. While like bands like Blasphemy are like two guitarists and a bass and a vocalist and a drummer, and it's so loud. Like they are opposite things. In all honesty, if you made an album that was a combination of those two bands and you had moments from both bands, you would have like an amazing best metal album of all time contender. But here you have this. It's truly a gross album. It's one that you really have to hear to experience because there's not that much I could tell you about it. I thought it was great though. I had a workout to it and felt somewhat powerful and also useless after. So, you know, give it a listen. And then we have a re-listen to Horna's Sano Jesse, Arel, I don't know even close what it is, but it's the famous Horna double album from like the midpoint in their career. And let me tell you, it is exemplary of what Horna is meant to be. You have two halves of this double album. The first half is old school riff punk Horna, and the second half is the best atmospheric black metal you ever heard in your life. And it's a little silly that it's presented so clearly like that. I wish I knew more about the themes of this album. It's an album that I want to purchase to understand more like that, but it is good enough to want to purchase, so I'll say that. So it's great. Buy it. Check it out. And up next, we have the #1 highest rated DSBM album from Finland, Total Self-Hatred's Self-Titled, an album I would maybe compare a little bit to, say, I was about to say Abyssic Hate, but that's the band we'll be covering a little bit later. Maybe, I don't know, there's one, Forgotten Tomb. Yeah, Forgotten Tomb, just a little bit. In terms of eclecticism, although they're a little bit more death doom, and this band here is a little bit more some heavy metal, a little bit of maybe thrash, death metal, but the black metal is really first and foremost here. It is like emotional, aggressive black metal. This is like post-hardcore to black metal here, and it works out really, really well. There's a reason this is the highest rated DSBM album for Finland, because it focuses on the metal first, and you could hear the emotions come through on the chords, the melodicism, the jagged time changes. Truly a bit of a progressive edge to this one, not overbearingly so, but definitely enough to tie the whole thing together. And the vocal tone. The vocals are just clear enough to have just a little bit of reverb. You can tell he's really anguished, but it's got that Finnish, cynical, caustic edge to it that he's like angry about this whole thing. It's got kind of like a Leviathan, like destructive vibe to the whole thing, but it's very personal. It feels extra personal without losing any masculine energy. It's got equal parts vulnerability with also like a placement of blame, like a desire for harm, a thoughts of like maybe not hope necessarily, but like revenge or something with ambition to it. There's a lot of extreme outbursts of emotion here. It's not giving up, which those languished sort of slow-paced DSBM albums kind of lack. I wish those had something about them that gave them a bit more But this one right here, I love because it's so in your face and directly emotional. It's one I think people of other metal genres might enjoy, if not just for as a good introduction to black metal, because there's so much going for it here. There's so much to sink your teeth into. There's it's songwriting perfection here. It is like it's easily one of the best DSBM albums I've ever heard. And there's a big gap between this and the next best DSBM album from Finland, unfortunately. And up next we have a speed metal influenced fusion album, Morgul, with Nightmare Lord. And I know by the look of this thing you're expecting like a war metal album, and it is not that. It's actually not a very sour or dissonant black metal album here. You just get melodic speed metal riffs like crazy. It just goes and goes and goes. It is so lightning fast. It's crazy stuff. Very fun listen, surprisingly enough. I'm just gonna say right now it's great. Give it a listen. And next we have Weird with Heathen, an album I've looked forward to for a while now, because Weird it's a band that definitely pops up here and there. It's one that I've listened to a few times, but this is their first album. It's an hour-long song, and it's very folk influenced, very doom influenced, very kind of progressive, and it's struggles from a few things. First off, the benefits: cool production, lo-fi, very solemn, definitely a one-man project. Imagine if Graveland was like kind of depressive and like strange, stretched to 56 minutes, and just super weird. And that's what you, well, no pun intended, but that's what you get here. The clean vocals, like Graveland, are a struggle, unfortunately, but it's not all bad. The pan flute goes absolutely crazy on this album. So for all my Mr. Tumnus fans out there, all the Satyr lovers, this is one for you. This definitely is an album that kind of leans into like bizarre loner avant folk territory of the 2000s. It feels a very self-produced thing here, and not like there was an album I covered a couple years back that was like so independent it was crazy. It was like no one looked at these songs at all. You just kind of released it, and the riffs were like so nothing. The vocals were like too clear and also about nothing. It was a strange thing. But here it feels like so alone. It's like this dude only listens to black metal and nothing else, and it feels like self-produced. It's all very consistent in the production, so it's very atmospheric and intimate. But there's like a little few too many flaws in the actual songwriting for me. Really, the main problem is just the clean vocals. If he just stopped doing that, or even did like spoken word instead of his singing, which is so Viking LARP, I would like it more. But it's good. She goes to show that Weird has some better albums. And up next we have a band called Old Sorcery with Sorrow Crown, which is traditionally a dungeon synth project who decided to make black metal for most of an album here. This is very symphonic, very dungeon synth laden, big progressive songs with a huge dense blanket of fog and mystery over the whole thing, even some wonder. Not like the say bipolar, intense manic wonder of like Tra, that one American phenomenal black metal project I love so much, but this one here is definitely pretty weird. It's like a brighter, cleaner, more psychedelic paysage d'hiver, and that's a band I love, so I think it's pretty great. Up next we have a recent release, a band called Hexerai with Realms. For fans of Slayer and Mutilation, if you like your riffs to sound like spiders crawling in your ears, this one's for you. It's creepy, it's raw, it's twisted, it's exactly what you want your black metal to sound like. It's occasionally doomy and crushing, but it is very atmospheric at the same time. It is often simple, but it is perfectly orchestrated. I really have no complaints. I think it's great. Up next, we have a band called White Death with their self-titled album, which, as you could probably imagine, is just some Finnish filth. It's melodic black metal with some fantastic goblinoid vocals. It's lightning fast, surging, and it's got these phenomenal, violent stops to it. It's even shockingly beautiful at points, where the atmosphere really knows how to, layer itself in. And every song has plenty of different things to offer. It's another example of great Finnish black metal songwriting. This one's great. Give it a listen. And up next, we have Vargrov with Netherstorm. And this one's cool. It's like a Horn, a side project that leans more into the atmospheric stuff. It is strange, it is spectral, it is haunting. It's light, but it's bolstered through simple and eerie atmospheric textures. I think it's a super cool example. It feels profoundly otherworldly. It's got intense atmosphere, really, really cool stuff. I would kind of compare this to something like Cosmic Church yet again, although it has like a darker atmosphere overall, a bit more aggression. I think it's great. Really cool side project here. Super cool stuff. And up next, we have the Horna Behexen split, which I wanted to cover a popular band's less popular pick, and it's right here. This one's actually right before Horna's best album, and I believe right after Behexen's best album. So right at that perfect era for greatness, and who would be shocked? Horna and Behexen, you could definitely tell they're different here. Horna goes in the punkier route, a bit more inwardly intense. Behexen's riffs are twice as long. That's the instant, easy thing to tell here, and it is biting and cruel. And what's crazy is like Horna is so upfront and punky that when it turns into Behexen and it gets more long-winded, it feels so much more anguished and cynical. Give this one a listen. It's great. Up next we have Ymir, self-titled, which I thought a previous project was a Horna side project, but this one's the actual Horna side project. It is an atmospherically bent album that's super cool. It's pretty furious. I would definitely compare it a little bit to that True Werewolf album, but definitely more atmosphere. It's a little less outwardly aggressive, and this one's a bit more mysterious and strange. It's action-packed with constant changes. It is pounding at points. It keeps sections on their toes constantly, which I love how, despite it having some atmospheric tendencies, this one just really knows how to keep you on your toes and kind of wondering what's next, because every time you get immersed, it's going to pull the rug out from under you. It's also a decent departure from the punky stylings of Horna. So definitely a really cool one. And up next, we have Cosmic Church's best album, Elistis. I don't really know how to pronounce that one, but everything that was a struggle off the previous Cosmic Church album is great here. It's really just about consistency. It's got that perfect gloomy atmospheric nature with a ton of blast beats, but it turns into riffs of all sorts of shapes and sizes at different points. It's got synth interludes that lead one track into the next. It sounds really nice. The vocals are nice and distant. It's mysterious. I have no real complaints. This is the one to listen to, and after so many years, I understand. And we have another split coming up. It's the Sargeist Horned Almighty split. And Horned Almighty is not from Finland. I know I cheated on my chart this year, but what matters is that they're good. Now, if you want Sargeist to be at their best, a lot of Horna influence, because it is the guy from Horna, this is the project for it. If you just want like a brick wall of dense, action-packed, riffy, melodic, yet very aggressive and has a bit of atmosphere to it, this is the one. It's chunky and weird, then turns very evil. It actually reminds me a bit of Detsamengeng Var by Burzum. It's not necessarily technical, but it doesn't feel punky because it's just so outwardly evil. The Horned Almighty side actually reminds me a lot of Horna, but chunkier, bassier, and less melodic. Feels more like anti-art than Horna. It's a bit less fierce, but it's more grimy, and it's still thrilling. It's definitely got an attitude to it. Another great, predominantly Finnish styling split here, so definitely a great one. I think you guys should listen to it. It's a bit of a deep cut. And this next one is, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Karsimisne Telma with an exclamation on the end. It's their self-titled. It translates to Passion Play. It is sort of a noise fusion album. Now, really what that means, this is a album of black metal songs, noise songs, power electronic songs, and more black metal songs, and little bits of like ambient noise songs. None of which are that insane on their own, but they all play into a general atmosphere of like dilapidation and neglect and like cynical hate. It feels insane. The whole thing feels improvised in all, and I would know, I used to be in a band that was entirely improvised. It's just it feels like ramblings constantly over themselves. I actually wish these songs had like a crossfade on them so I could just get the atmosphere jammed in a bit more. The only problem with this album is it's very inconsistent. which like it kind of works in itself, but there's nothing bridging all these songs together. All of them are noisy, but some of them are noise and some of them are black metal. Probably the most aggressive thing on this album. It kind of reminds me of when a black metal band, I was listening to one today. I was listening to Kraft today, and as hateful as they are, one of the most hateful things they do, aside from doom metal sections, is just switch into like a polka beat, which here there's just drum fills everywhere for seemingly no reason. Like imagine if, I don't know, like a dude started drumming a bit and he was like, check out these fills I can do, and he just doesn't stop doing it. Like it's like imagine a Berkeley professor drummer joined your black metal band. That's what it is here. But your Berkeley professor would do it because he thinks he's good. This guy's doing it because he knows it stops being annoying at one point and just starts being like overbearingly crusty and gross. I'm running out of words to say in this video. I think I've said every word in the dictionary, so I'm just kind of repeating the same ones. But this album's a really cool one. It definitely left me a little bit to be expected. I thought it was going to be like a true like Brahma Strika style like black metal noise blend. But I think for what it is, I think it's pretty great. It definitely is like a good example of what Finnish metal is in terms of attitude. And up next is Malum with Night of the Luciferian Light, which is some mostly excellent black metal with some really cool tempo differences that break everything up. It's melodic and noisy at times, occasionally even doomy. And I'll be honest, it's an album that's very, very excellent, but the bass tone is like so Paul McCartney-esque, and it's like right at the top of the mix, and it's so up front that it genuinely kind of ruins the listening experience. The whole album ends up sounding really weak. I'm going to say this album's good, but in all honesty, if they remix this album, it would be great, and without remixing it, it's kind of bad, which is a shame, because like it's probably a band I'll have to check out their other stuff at some point, but I think what's here is kind of tragic. It's like so close. And up next we have a band called For Lore with Towards the End, which is this mid-paced, grim, fairly standard black metal, which honestly is pretty boring black metal. The riffs are overall solid, but the bass is way too loud and it refuses to play the root for some reason. Just another album where it's just constantly distracting. But even worse than that, it kind of seems to be doing that because there's not a lot going on. I'd say this album's okay, but it's more boring than anything. Up next, we have a recent release, a band called Earn with their album Demon Steel. And this is a band that has actually been rocking it out in Finland for a long time. And listening to this album, it's kind of a fusion album. It's got a lot of speed metal influence here. But looking through their Rate Your Music page, I can kind of imply something. A lot of people don't like this album because they've listened to their other stuff. I love this album, personally. It's a really good kind of kicking speed metal, heavy metal influenced black metal album here. It's kind of actiony, it's fun, a little Judas Priest, a little Iron Maiden, it's thrashy, it's bouncy, it's an overall recipe for success. But from what it sounds like, is that this is a toned down version of just what the band used to be. Like they used to kick it into high gear, they used to have heavier riffs that worked in a similar style to this. Think like early Slayer. But overall, this album's super fun, great lead guitar parts, great production. If people find this one so disappointing though, I can't wait to hear what the rest of the discography has, because I thought this one was great. I think it's worth listening to, but apparently it's not worth listening to if you are really into the band. So, high hopes. And next we have a band called Frozen Graves, self-titled album. Sort of a Cosmic Church side project. Feels familiar, but with more variety. It's bassy and has a grand presence overall. Some really cool contrasting here between some celestially huge melodic style riffs and some more like instant Darkthrone, Burzum, heavy metal riffs. Like really crazy contrast that I just don't hear that much. It's like if you took both sides of that one Horna album and just put it in one song or in one 8-second phrase. Probably longer than that because it's pretty long, but I thought it was a super cool idea. It's an overall thrilling and really nice album. I think it's great. I think it's worth listening to. Up next we have a band called Thy Serpent with Force of Witchery. It's boring, folky, atmospheric black metal, underwhelming production, not a lot going for it. Some good riffs though. It is Finnish black metal after all, so I'd say it's okay. There's just other things worth listening to more. Up next, we have Clandestine Blaze with City of Slaughter, which is a popular band's less popular album. It's actually a band I've never listened to, and I was kind of struggling looking for albums to pick from, and yet I've seen a lot of people mention Clandestine Blaze, so I picked this one, and wow, this is a deeply cynical, upsetting album. It's like these fast melodic takes on what sound more like DSBM riffs. Kind of feels a bit like Drowning the Light, where it's like so like almost these like sardonic and like melancholic riffs, just drenched in dread, with like vocals over the top that are like so bracingly bitter and aggressive. It's really an album that punches you while you're down. It feels like a dirge at points. It is very effective. It's kind of a disgusting album, and overall game changer. This one is great, and while it might not be the best Clandestine Blaze album up to the reviews, it's a lot of bands' best album doesn't match this quality. So gonna have to check them out more in the future. And up next we have a band called Catamania with Chaosborn, a band that I immediately put in my Discogs list, and also I added the rest of their albums to future Nothing But Black Metal November potential listenings, because wow, this thing rules. It is insanely melodic with bright, giant chords, tons of thrashy energy, Iron Maiden-esque riffing, gorgeous melodies. The song Lost in Bitterness is one of the best things I've heard this year. Just amazing. Just so much urgency and energy. These songs shocked me with how perfect they were. They were so finely tuned to be the best they could be. Highly recommend this album. Apparently the band isn't good anymore, but apparently they have a couple other great albums. I will be checking them out. But you guys should check this one out. And up next we have a re-listen, Impaled Nazarene's Ugra Karma, just a disgusting grindcore influenced black metal album from early 90s that just goes to show the divergence between like Norwegian and Finnish black metal. While Norway may have coined the second wave style, like wow, that American Canadian stuff was in the Finnish soup as well. It was just so aggressively gross. Like, it's almost like if you listen to like European gore grind versus American gore grind does have like a bit of groove, a bit of this, bit of that, but like European gore grind, you're just like, wow, you guys just went like full gross. It just feels like no grooviness, no riffs. It's borderline atmospheric. And here you could tell it was made in the same continent, I guess, because it's just like, wow, you will go under 2 minutes for songs sometimes just to get these intense songs with like wailing vocals. It just doesn't stop. Definitely a lot of catchy, grounded qualities here, but it's very warlike, super intense stuff. Gotta say, this album is an all-time classic. Probably not for everyone. Definitely filthy. Definitely a style that has been dialed back a lot since then, and definitely I would say refined a bit going forward. Even that Tolkormt album, Norsh, I think is better, but this one is still a very fine example of the genre. And up next we have a band called Nat Fog with Mustan Aringon Riti, I guess, something like that. It's pagan, semi-melodic, but actually kind of beautiful. It's got sort of that Burzum-esque mystery, but overall less evil. Pretty effective. It's got an overall really longing tone that it greatly expresses through its repetition. It's a supremely contemplative album. It evokes such a clear night atmosphere here. Not super evil, not super dour and dread-inducing, but it's just kind of reflective in a way. I think it's great. I think it's a really cool one. And unfortunately, another album here I cannot pronounce, but it is Revaus with Leodin Tadine Ja Kuroikin. Wow, this one is gas. It is 34 minutes of like punky, doomy, slightly melodic black metal, which if you can't tell, that's just kind of how Finnish black metal goes. But it is entirely unpredictable. It has some of the craziest transitions I've ever heard. Even when it feels kind of Burzum inspired, it's actually not too repetitive. You get these tight, vibey winter interludes. Overall, this whole thing is a tight listening experience. No frills, no BS, but just enough atmosphere somehow. Genuinely an impressive album. One of the best I've heard this year, and one of the best I'll hear in a long time. A serious rush that you guys should listen to despite the corny album cover. And up next, we have an album from about a year ago, Corgonthorus, with Nolis de Sintinit, which is just a very unique and eclectic album that I'm just going to describe right now as insane. I'm going to forego a lot of what this album is, but they managed to weave in like 1,000 different riffing styles here that are all different, and yet it works in the atmosphere. It's just insane. It's riffy. It is very intense, and it manages to remain intense and forward. It doesn't lay back on itself. It has no moments of ambience or extreme relaxation necessarily. Not a lot of contemplation, but like it just throws 1,000 things at you at the same time and seems to take all of them in stride. Like it manages to bounce off each different thing a lot. I just remember it having a riff that sounded like a Wes Borland riff from Limp Bizkit, and it just kind of seemed to keep doing stuff like that. That would shock me. And it pairs it well with the atmosphere. So give it a listen, please. I'm probably gonna buy it like soon. Up next, I have an album called Spirit and Teeth by a band called Wormwoods, which is unlike most black metal I've ever heard. Bit similar to that Oranssi Pazuzu one I was talking about earlier, but definitely more jazzy, similarly dissonant, winding, and bizarre. It's melodic, disjointed, and noisy. There's a lot of dense synth layers that warp between crystal clear and harsh noise. Just a strange, alienating experience. It has a lot of slow, overlapping elements that just make the atmosphere so grounded. It's kind of what I was wanting a bit more from that Passion Play album I was referencing earlier. But this one really you gotta listen to understand. It's like jazzy and avant-garde and very strange. It's when people describe like Imperial Triumphant or Oranssi Pazuzu or any of these other weird bands, this is what they really want to talk about. And it takes like 10 different elements of these like avant-garde black metal bands and puts them all together. And yet it doesn't ever really sound like, say, Pericletus by that one band who the member of Clandestine Blaze is the vocalist of, whose name is Miko Aspa, and yet I can't remember the name of this actual band right now, even though he's not technically the band. They got the Furnaces of Palagenesia. That's what their albums. I don't know. This should be enough hints by now. They're good. They're a great band, but they wail on the dissonant side, and this is a little bit more on the what else can we throw in side. And up next we have the album of the year, Hex Vessel with Nocturne, a recent release. What if a folk band made a black metal album and kept singing and didn't do any harsh vocals, and it was also the most dissonant thing you've heard all year? Literally take any of their black metal albums chart, take any of those bands, take the most dissonant album they could conjure up. It's not as dissonant as this one. And yes, I'm including the harsh noise interludes. This is more dissonant. It's so shrill and harsh that it was really strange to believe you could consider this an avant folk masterpiece. It's a black metal masterpiece. Probably my album of the year. Probably. Next, we have Kala Mankataja with Tigis. It's a DSBM slop album. It's got some decent texture points. It's a shame that's in like the top 10 DSBM rate your music finish albums, because it's not going to give you anything. You like listen to it and you're like, okay, this is when it gets good, and you feel like everything feels like an intro, and then it never gets great. So it's okay, none of it sucked. Up next is Abyssic Hate with Suicidal Emotions, which I have to disqualify because it's Australian. I don't know why I put it on the chart. Couldn't explain it now, couldn't explain it then. Anyway, this is a band where most of their material is actually on this album here, and they're re-recordings of a couple different EPs from before. There are like 3 other songs on this dude's discography, and they're all NSBM songs, including a cover of a Goatmoon song. The NSBM bands need to stop glazing each other like that, because you guys are not that interesting. Like, some good songs here and there, but like, geez, you don't gotta cover them every time. It's like on a Goatmoon tribute album. And it's like, a tribute album? Really? Are they that good? It's like, you can't escape problematic players in Finland, but like, if there was a Horna tribute album, it's like, you better do something interesting if you're all covering Horna. It could happen. It could be happen and be very successful, but I don't see it happening. They also did a Pink Floyd cover at one point, which is pretty cool. Anyway, this is like despondent, dejected, and monotonous sort of DSBM, but like pretty solid for DSBM. It's not overly languished. It's awful and occasionally reminds me of Forest, but is angsty and spiteful. The attitude really is there. It is that sort of cornering of that aggressive NSBM style that I like a lot. I think this one's actually pretty great. But I do have a replacement one just because I had to disqualify this, and I need at least 60 Finnish black metal albums. It's a band called Mortualia with their album Blood of the Hermit. This is a Horna side project, and one a lot of people like more than me. Kind of a forebodingly long atmospheric black metal project with a lot of DSBM tendencies. I'll have to listen to it again because I think I just wasn't feeling it at the time. It was pretty long-winded with a lot of wind-up, and I was looking for like my intense riffs, but it's not too lethargic. It's definitely has a lot of good moments. It's just, I think I expected something that wanted to be more on the atmospheric side, and then I kind of led myself in the wrong direction. I think it's good. Probably re-listen to it. Speaking of Horna, we have a popular band's less popular album with Horna's Ania Yosa, which is another one I'll have to re-listen to because I honestly did not love it. And everyone seems to kind of love this album or just barely not love this album, and for different reasons. Some people love the front half and some people love the back half. It's an album where there are 2 guitar tracks ran by Shatraug, who's the Horna dude, and then there's some guest vocalists on this whole thing. And it's an album about the Black Death. And unfortunately, once I realized that, it made a lot more sense. It's like it's like if Horna ate another Horna to make this album. It's especially punky on the front half and despondent and chilling, but it's so much more like atmospheric in its simplicity. Like, it'll have these punky riffs that repeat over and over and over again, and I don't think I was just really ready for that. And the last song is like a 20-minute, very repetitive black metal track, with a drum machine over the whole thing, and the whole thing is meant to be as foreboding and depressing and crushing as possible. It's why it's the only DSBM crossover that Horna ever really did, and it's atmospheric and experimental in a way that I think just maybe just doesn't work because I don't speak Finnish. If it was in English, I think I'd probably understand it, but just because of that, it kind of struggled for me. I think it's good. Definitely a lot of great, beautiful moments on here. Like, the riffs on the front half are great. In the second half, I think that atmosphere actually really sets in for me. I liked it a lot. It's a time and a place album for sure. And next we have a band called Blood Red Fog with their self-titled album, another DSBM album here, kind of the tail end of this chart with all the DSBM projects here. This one had a lot of variety. It was also very long. It was brooding and raw with very little bass. And I think the only major problem here was the production just didn't carry it through to the end because there were riffs. Every song had a lot going for it. It just didn't sound good. It's dissonant despite its overall more clean-cut presentation. If the production was just a little better and gave it a bit more presence, or even less presence, it's just kind of middling in this whatever ground. I think they needed an artistic choice on that grounds to push it one step further. I think it's good though. This is a band I might check out another one of their albums at some point, but I'm not entirely certain. Up next we have the final recent release, or second to last, with a band called Prescription with Desolate Divine. This is sort of a crossover thing here with death metal, and let me tell you, it's definitely a crossover with, if you had to take 2 bands, or at least 2 concepts, and mix them together, think like ever so slightly death-influenced black metal, and like a modern death metal band that like has never listened to Obituary, or maybe has listened to Obituary, but then never listened to Morbid Angel or Deicide or most of those bands. Just like is like, wow, I really love Dying Fetus. Like, they've only listened to Dying Fetus, and then they decided to make a death metal band. And then you mix those 2 bands together. That's what you get here. Shades of Mirror Throne, minus the atmospheric side. This is like deathcore and slam influenced black metal here. Like, there are like probably like a good four breakdowns on this album, and there are doomy parts and like borderline slammy parts, and there are a lot of riffs and very clean production. That being said, it's so fast, it's got a lot of melodicism, it's got a lot of energy that I can't really complain. I'll give it this. It's a little posery. A couple points, I was genuinely like, oh, come on, guys. But it's got a lot going for it. It's got a ton of energy, a lot of really fast paced, intense moments. I think it's great. It is the most posery album on this whole chart, though. But I definitely support this more than a couple of those atmospheric DSBM releases back there. So, gotta shout it out. Up next is Oath of Sirion with King of the Dragon Throne EP. And it's the last time I remember doing symphonic black metal on this thing. This is like MIDI City. It's just the most plug-in, like dumb sounding synths I've ever heard. It's so bad. And unfortunately, this band like never did anything as this project again. But funnily enough, it's the dudes from Azagal, which I covered like a couple years ago. They had like an ever so slightly death metal tinged black metal album. Felt very American, honestly, kind of hipstery. But they used to make like nerd black metal. Like it's one of those projects where it's like no one told you this sounds bad. Like no one in Finland, no one who made metal said it just sounds bad. It is a laughable EP the entire time. Maybe there's decent moments, but I couldn't even just focus on them enough for the MIDI synths to be so grating and bad. It's a hilarious EP. I hope they make other stuff that I can appreciate, but this was not it. And next we have a band called Tunrida or Tunrida with Hierarchy. It's a Finnish version of Summoning. It's good, but it's not that good. It's over the top. And next we have Faustian Pact with, and I'll never have to do this again, I hope, but Otogen, Tornian, Varjoisa. It's medieval and trapped in this symphonic blanket. There's no synth sections necessarily, but they are constantly present, wrapped around the whole thing, which felt like a bit of a missed opportunity to me. It's mystical and weird with a lot of furious momentum, but it just kind of didn't tie itself together at any point for me. So I think it's good, but it just didn't cross the finish line. And up next we have our final release on the whole chart of Finland, Moon Citadel with Starwind Usurper, and it's them kind of confronting a criticism I had about them. They didn't want to really change their style, but here they tried. They went a little too interlude-y, a little too spacey, but they don't sound like Dark Space. They don't sound like Mare Cognitum or any of those bands. They're still Moon Citadel, and that's what matters. Is they still make the riffs, baby. They make riffs. There's acoustic guitar and monk-like chanting. I'm gonna be honest. This is a Moon Citadel album with a lot of confused elements put on top of it, which are not that bad. They're okay. They could be a lot worse. There's honestly, my biggest complaint about this thing is there's just not enough black metal here. It's a great listen, but it's like only 2/3 black metal. Now there's acoustic and interludes and all this other stuff, and I'm like, guys, like, look, you can't forget what makes Moon Citadel Moon Citadel. And maybe I just needed to listen to it in my on a record and just really get the full experience. But I don't really care to do that. I think it is on its own a very good listening experience. If this was their first project, I'd be like, wow, I'm excited to see what they do next, but I could see it going wrong. And in all honesty, I could see it going wrong on their next release. So I'm hopeful. I hope they take this concept and do something cool with it and don't screw it up, because they could screw it up pretty easily. And I could see how they could. They just need to dive more into that. If this was a full-length album, it would not even be very good. Like, they just keep doing all that interlude stuff. Look, they need to, like, I get experimenting and stuff, but, like, you got to understand what you can do well, and don't do what you're not confident with. Or if you're experimenting, like, experiment a little more interestingly, and don't do something kind of gimmicky like this. But I think it's still great. I'm just kind of worried for the future of Moon Citadel, which I will be following in the future. But that is Nothing But Black Metal, November 2025. Oh my goodness. In one video. I'm tired. I'm very tired. That was a long recording session. And here's the chart of all the black metal albums this year. All of them were great, of course. No complaints from me. I love Finland so much. Great stuff. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. What have you guys been listening to? Anything good? Anything good at all? I listened to some Craft earlier. That was cool. Playing Mutilation in my car. It's been fun. Yeah, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Stuff down below. Also in the description down below. Links to my Instagram, Discord. Love to see you guys in my Discord. We're just talking about albums and stuff. My Instagram, I'm posting cocktail content this time of year. Just having a good time. And that is about it. I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye.